For decades, the US dollar has been the bedrock of the global financial system, the undisputed king of currencies. It's been a symbol of stability, a safe haven in times of economic turmoil, a symbol of power and privilege, enjoyed primarily by the United States. When nations trade or central banks hold reserves, it's the dollar they turn to, solidifying its position in the global economy. This grants the US immense economic and political leverage, influencing international relations and trade policies. But today, July 23, 2025, that dominance faces its boldest challenge yet, a direct assault on its long-held supremacy. The BRICS bloc, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, and new members are openly questioning the dollar's reign, challenging the status quo with increasing boldness. They're not just talking, they're building new systems, alternative financial infrastructures designed to bypass the dollar, forging alliances and pushing for a world where the dollar is just one currency among many, a level playing field for international finance. These nations, representing much of the world's population and economic output, feel constrained by a system they didn't create, a system they believe unfairly benefits the United States. They see the dollar's dominance as a tool of US foreign policy weaponized through sanctions and economic shocks, used to exert pressure and influence on other nations. Their quest financial independence in a multipolar world order where economic power is distributed more evenly. This is a quiet revolution fought with financial instruments, digital currencies, and trade agreements, not armies. The implications are staggering, potentially reshaping global trade investment and power. Is this the beginning of the end for the dollar's reign, or just a bold but futile challenge? The world is watching as the first moves in this high-stakes game unfold, a game that could redefine the global economic landscape for decades to come. Dedollarization, reducing reliance on the US dollar, is about countries seeking greater economic and political autonomy. Instead of putting all their eggs in one basket, nations want a more balanced system with multiple currencies in play. For BRICS, the dollar-centric system feels outdated and unfair, giving the US an outsized advantage. The US can finance deficits easily and wield sanctions as a powerful weapon. When a country is dollar-dependent, it's vulnerable to US monetary policy and sanctions that can cripple economies overnight. Dedollarization is about creating options, building parallel financial infrastructures and promoting local currencies for trade. It's not about destroying the dollar, but about building alternatives and reducing risk. BRICS nations are establishing new payment networks, settling trade in their own currencies, and accumulating reserves in gold and other assets. The goal, financial sovereignty, and a rebalanced global economic order. This is a long-term strategic project. The scales of global power are shifting. De-dollarization is how these nations are tipping them. To build a new financial order, the BRICS nations are strategically pivoting towards gold. This move signifies a departure from traditional financial systems and a step towards greater economic autonomy. Gold, revered throughout history, stands as one of the oldest and most trusted forms of money, a tangible asset that transcends borders and eras. China, Russia, and India have been among the world's largest gold buyers, consistently increasing their reserves in recent years. This accumulation is part of a broader strategy of diversifying away from the dollar and reducing reliance on a single currency. Gold is a neutral reserve asset, a store of value that doesn't depend on the policies or stability of any single nation. It's free from counterparty risk and immune to sanctions, offering a safe haven in times of geopolitical tension. It's a hedge against economic and political uncertainty, providing stability when other assets fluctuate wildly. In a world of shifting alliances and economic volatility, gold offers a foundation of trust. Alongside gold, the BRICS nations are also embracing modern tools to reshape the financial landscape. These include the strategic use of currency swap lines, agreements that facilitate trade and investment. These agreements let countries trade directly in their own currencies, fostering stronger economic ties and reducing dependence on intermediaries. This allows them to bypass the dollar entirely, streamlining transactions and reducing costs. For example, China and Brazil can settle trade in yuan and real, eliminating the need to convert to dollars first. This cuts out the dollar as middleman, making trade more efficient and cost-effective for both parties. China has set up dozens of swap lines worldwide, forging partnerships and expanding its economic influence. This is creating a web of financial relationships outside the dollar system, offering alternative avenues for trade and investment. These swaps make trade cheaper by reducing transaction costs, and they reduce exchange rate risk by providing stable currency pairs. Ultimately, they boost the use of local currencies, strengthening national economies, and promoting financial independence. As a result, a Brazilian company can pay a Chinese supplier directly in real, without ever needing to touch US dollars. The Chinese supplier, in turn, receives yuan, no dollars needed, simplifying the entire transaction process. Each swap, each transaction conducted in local currencies, chips away at the dollar's dominance in global trade. It's a gradual, but persistent shift, one trade at a time, reshaping the landscape of international finance. Gold and swaps are the twin engines of this new financial strategy, working in tandem to create a more balanced and multipolar world. The world's financial map is being redrawn, with BRICS nations playing a key role in shaping its future. If gold and swaps are the vehicles, new payment systems are the highways of de-dollarization. For decades, SWIFT has been the backbone of global payments, but it's vulnerable to Western control. The exclusion of Russian banks from SWIFT in 2022 showed how financial infrastructure can be weaponized. In response, BRICS nations are building their own systems. China's CIPS enables yuan transactions worldwide, bypassing US-controlled networks. Russia's SPFS and India's new platforms are expanding the options. They vision a unified BRICS pay system, letting citizens make cross-border payments in local currencies. These systems create redundancy and choice, ensuring trade can continue even under sanctions. The goal isn't to replace SWIFT overnight, but to build a resilient alternative. Parallel financial plumbing is the most ambitious and crucial aspect of de-dollarization. True financial sovereignty depends on it. The race to build these highways is on. De-dollarization is moving from theory to action, as more trade deals are settled in local currencies. India and the UAE now settle trade in rupees and dirhams, bypassing the dollar. China, the top trading partner for over 120 countries, is pushing the win in major energy deals. Russia, cut off from Western markets, now trades with China and India in yuan and rupees. Across Asia, Africa, and Latin America, local currency trade agreements are multiplying. Even Saudi Arabia is considering accepting non-dollar payments for oil. Each deal proves that large-scale commerce can function without the dollar. Still, the dollar remains dominant, used in nearly 90% of global forex transactions. These deals are a trickle, not a flood, but the trend is clear. The journey is a marathon, and the dollar's incumbency is a formidable defense. The next frontier is digital central bank digital currencies, or CBDCs, could accelerate de-dollarization. CBDCs are digital versions of national currencies issued by central banks and fully controlled. For BRICS, CBDCs offer a way to build efficient, independent payment systems from scratch. China leads with its digital yuan already piloted by millions. The ECNY could soon be used for cross-border payments, bypassing SWIFT and US banks. India is testing its own digital rupee for both retail and interbank use. Projects like M-Bridge are exploring how different CBDCs can work together on a shared platform. Digital currencies could leapfrog the dollar's network effects, offering instant low-cost and risk-free settlement. Instead of slowly building trust in physical currencies, a state-backed digital platform could offer a compelling alternative. Atomic settlement, where payment and asset exchange happen simultaneously, could become the norm. The digital currency race may decide the future of global finance. The battle for monetary supremacy is going virtual. The path to de-dollarization is steep and full of obstacles. The dollar's dominance is deeply entrenched. Commodities, bonds, and loans are all priced in dollars. This creates powerful inertia that's hard to break. Trust is another barrier. Reserve currencies require faith in the issuing country's stability and rule of law. The US benefits from transparent institutions and open markets. BRICS nations, especially China and Russia, face skepticism. Building that trust could take generations. Legal and regulatory complexities abound. Harmonizing rules across diverse countries is a monumental task. Dispute resolution and legal frameworks for a new system remain unresolved. The West is unlikely to stand by passively. Expect regulatory pushback and technological competition. The US and allies will defend the status quo, promoting the dollar's reliability. The BRICS challenge is bold, but the incumbent system is resilient. The contest is just beginning. The stakes, the future shape of global finance. The outcome is far from certain. Economic sanctions have become the West's weapon of choice and a catalyst for de-dollarization. The freezing of Russia's reserves in 2022 shocked the world, showing that dollar assets can be seized at will. For many nations, this turned a theoretical risk into a real threat. Countries are now seeking financial safe havens outside Western control. The expansion of BRICS to include Saudi Arabia and the UAE is a direct response. Every new sanction is an advertisement for alternatives. Geopolitics is now the engine driving de-dollarization. Is the dollar era drawing to a close? The question hangs heavy in the air, prompting discussions in boardrooms and government chambers alike. Not yet, but the world is undeniably changing, undergoing a profound transformation that will reshape the global financial landscape. A total, immediate collapse of dollar dominance is highly unlikely. The system is deeply entrenched, woven into the fabric of international finance and trust in U.S. institutions, while perhaps wavering in some corners, remains a significant factor, particularly among major investors. But the BRICS challenge is very real, a force to be reckoned with as these nations seek greater economic influence, and the world is steadily moving toward a more multipolar financial system, one where power is distributed among several key players. The dollar's share of global reserves is slowly but surely declining, a trend that suggests a gradual shift in the balance of power. Local currency trade deals, bypassing the dollar in favor of direct exchanges, alternative payment systems, designed to circumvent traditional financial networks, and strategic gold accumulation are collectively building a parallel financial architecture, a backup plan for a world less reliant on the dollar. The future may very well be one of distinct currency blocks, the dollar dominating trade and finance in the West, the yuan gaining prominence in Asia, and other regional currencies steadily emerging to challenge the status quo. Trade could increasingly be settled in a diverse mix of currencies, reflecting the true economic power of nations, or even through a new, universally accepted digital asset, transcending national borders and traditional financial systems. This would inevitably be a more complex and fragmented system, but perhaps a more realistic reflection of the shifting balance of global power. The dollar's ultimate fate depends as much on prudent U.S. policy decisions as it does on the collective ambition and coordinated efforts of the BRICS nations. If the U.S. continues to overuse its financial power through sanctions and other measures, it will only serve to accelerate the global search for viable alternatives to the dollar-centric system. The starting gun has been fired, signaling the beginning of a new era of financial competition. The complete end of the dollar era isn't imminent, but the beginning of its gradual decline, the initial stages of its eventual transformation, may very well be upon us. The world is watching with bated breath, and the strategic moves made in the coming years will undoubtedly shape the financial landscape of the entire century.